Today's special guest thought leader is Dr. Malika Grayson. She's a speaker, author, and educator who specializes in STEM and advocates for women of color navigating their profession. Dr. Grayson is only the second Black woman graduate to earn a PhD in mechanical engineering from Cornell University. After conquering many challenges throughout her journey, she developed the Black Girl's Guide to Grad School to help increase the number of Black women who graduate with advanced degrees by sharing helpful tips, advice, and offering mentorship. And her work in STEM has led her to being named one of Trinidad and Tobago's 40 under 40 youth influencers by the Ministry of Youth and Sports Affairs. And she's here today to share some of her brilliant insights with us. But before we get started, I encourage you to sound off. I'm really curious to know what you think about this conversation as we're having it. So go ahead and text me at 404 737 4957 to sound off. That's 404 737 4957. And there's no need to text any keyword or phrase because it's really me responding back to you. I would love to know what you think. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Malika Grayson. Hi, Dr. Grayson. How are you today?
I am doing well. How's it going, Courtney?
Doing well, hanging in there. You know, we are in some crazy times, so I'm glad to know that you are well and that we're able to have this amazing conversation. So, let's start off by talking about something that I think is really important. I'm very intentional about asking this question first because I think for so many in society, many Black women are reduced down to what we can do or what we can produce, especially in the mainstream media. And so this platform is different because while you're highly accomplished, our viewers really tune in to learn about the human. So let's start this way. Who is Dr. Malika Grayson?
This is a good question because when I think of that question, there's so many things that come to mind, right? Dr. Malika Grayson, she's a Trini, she's a STEM advocate, she's now an author, she's an engineer, she's a mentor, she reads essays for free, she's a friend. I'm just a full supporter of Black women in STEM, Black women pursuing their advanced degrees. So there's so many things that kind of make me who I am that it's hard to just put in a few words that description of who Dr. Malika Grayson is.
And really, you know, that means you're multifaceted. And I think that's one of the incredible things about being a thought leader is that you can be multi-passionate and multifaceted. So, you are the second Black woman to graduate with a PhD in mechanical engineering from Cornell University. Can you talk about your journey and why it was important for you to pursue your education in this particular field?
So growing up, I was actually always interested in STEM, even though I didn't know what STEM was. I was interested in using my hands. I was interested in fixing things around the house, breaking things, putting them back together. And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it had something to do with science, right? It had something to do with the way things worked. And once I started undergrad, so I had an opportunity where school came to Trinidad, which is where I grew up, and I met a few people, and I applied to that school, Adelphi University, which is where I did my bachelor's in physics. And during my time at Adelphi, I actually got the opportunity to attend a summer undergraduate research experience at Georgia Tech University. And during that experience, like that was my first exposure to engineering and seeing that it wasn't just me doing all the theory, but it was the application to the theory that I was doing from physics. And I had the best time, other than the fact that I was in Atlanta, of course, but getting to know what exactly it means to be a mechanical engineer or seeing the application of science really motivated me to pursue my PhD in mechanical engineering. And so at the time when I started pursuing it, I didn't think of the fact that I was, the second Black woman or the only or the first African American woman, right, to pursue a PhD in mechanical engineering or to graduate with a PhD in mechanical engineering from there. I really just wanted to know more and learn more about engineering because I hadn't been exposed before.
And it sounded like, engineering from the time that you were a child really lit you up, and you followed that passion, you followed that sort of curiosity and hunger. And I think it's really important. And I'm really glad that you shared that, because so often I think as a society, we make the mistake of sort of requiring kids to know what they want to be when they grow up by the time they're 3 or 4. That's one of the main questions we often ask, is, hey, little man, hey, little lady, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think that in order to adequately answer that question, we have to live some life. We have to sort of, like you said, break things, take things apart, explore. And so, it's interesting that you realized that you wanted to pursue the PhD after this research experience, right? It wasn't necessarily before. And so, for women out there who are in this grad school journey, in this PhD journey, or even those who are looking um, to start it, I think it's reassuring to know that you don't always have to know what the exact steps in your path are going to be, in order to truly pursue your calling. Is that something that you could agree with?
Yeah, I agree with that. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a doctor. I think maybe till the age of 10, I don't know. But I remember always wanting to be a doctor. And then because people ask me, what you want to be when you grow up, what you want to be? And I was like, oh, I want to be a doctor. And I know my dad, he wanted me to be a doctor too. And I remember when I realized I didn't like biology, right? It wasn't for me. And instead of trying to fit a square into a round hole, square peg in a round hole, I decided to find something that really fit me. And of course, it's always disappointing when you tell people the opposite of what they want to hear, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't passionate about biology. I wasn't passionate about that subject at the time. And that's a really important part of, your trajectory, especially in high school, taking those classes that align with what you want to do. So I think it's important to really have those experiences because if you don't, then you're going to find yourself doing something that it was somebody else's idea, right? Or it was a
Yes.
thought that was trained in your head while you were growing up or, outside influences. And then you realize, oh, I'm actually not passionate about this.
Yeah. And then, so often I think, as Black women, we sometimes get stuck in certain professions, because of those expectations, because we told our family at 3 years old they want to be a lawyer. And so we wanted to follow through with that because we're the first in the family, or we might be one of the few in the family to get that far, right? So again, thank you so much for emphasizing this idea of really owning your path and choosing your path on your own, and making that decision from an empowered place. So, as someone who has graced the hallowed halls of the ivory tower myself, I know firsthand the challenges that Black women face, especially. What are some of the challenges you see us having to overcome in academia and that are unique to Black women, Dr. Grayson?
Well, one of the things that's hard for Black women, and you can probably relate to this, or you probably have friends that relate to this, when you walk into a school for the first time, you're looking to see, okay, who looks like me, right? Because it's just natural. We go to people, we gravitate to people we're comfortable in. But when you get into the ivory tower and you realize there's no professor that looks like me, or no dean, or people in power who look like me, it really takes you back and it's sobering because you realize that you're by yourself. And that is a sort of challenge because while we have allies and while we have mentors who don't look like us, I think it's really important as we go through some of these journeys to have someone who is a minority, to have someone who is a person of color because only they can understand some of the situations that we'll face, right? Some of
Mm-hmm.
the systemic racism or microaggressions,
Mm-hmm.
um, or just plain outright racism, right?
Mm-hmm.
In some
Mm-hmm.
cases.
Can you mentioned microaggressions, and for those who are not familiar with what that term means, it's essentially the small little itty bitty things, the offhanded remarks, or the passive aggressive kinds of things, or the rude questions that people in systems and institutions and organizations and even companies sort of do in communication. So, can you talk about some of the microaggressions that you've faced in academia? Some that you've heard other Black women scholars face, just to give people watching an idea of what a microaggression is, because I think so often we throw around these terms and we don't take the time to operationalize them. And so for those who are looking to extend their journey into higher education, I think it's important to know what some of those things could look like.
Yeah, and I think you're right, right? It's really important, and you get it not just in academia, you get it all the time. It's just sometimes you don't even notice what it is until you're having a conversation and you reflect back and you're like, oh, well, somebody told me that, or somebody said something to me similar, and you didn't realize what it was. And you have the easiest ones. People see you in academia, people see you as a graduate student, and they say, oh, what are you studying? And they're like, oh, you're really smart, or your family must be so proud, or I've had outright just, wow, you're smart for, a Black girl, or you're smart for somebody from the Caribbean, or um, so I heard you from the islands. I didn't know, do they have internet there? So just those, I mean, some of them are just plain ignorant, right?
Yes.
And yeah, it's been funny to hear some of the comments that you get, and even as women with natural hair, right? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you get that, oh, do you really want to wear your hair like that, or do you think it's professional, or you have, nice hair for XYZ, right? Fill in the
Mm-hmm.
blank.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's crazy because it tends to toughen you up. It's almost like you get to a point where you can totally disregard it, and because you'll be fighting battles all the time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of over time I've learned not to take it personally and stand up for myself or say something back, right? Like if somebody gives me a backhanded comment, I say, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am pretty sure we were in the same class. So, so something that makes them that reminds them that we climbed the ladder the same way. So if anything, you should be happy, or you actually should be higher than me, because technically with systemic racism, you should be all up there, right? But you're not. So what does that say for you? So I think it's really a matter of trying to figure out how we deal with some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
because if you get distracted, and honestly for me, I think sometimes, or in the beginning, it was really distracting, and I spent so much time like, oh my gosh, these people are, this person is like me, or wow, this person is just super ignorant, and I just had to build my walls.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that um, we often have to do that, right? Whether it's in the ivory tower, or whether it's in corporate America, or whether it's in entrepreneurship, and we're dealing with folks who really don't have a great idea of, or they have this one set opinion or idea of blackness, and so there's this expectation, these unspoken expectations, and so when you don't meet those, or when you sort of challenge those, that's when the microaggressions come. That's when all of those indignities, those outright racist comments, actions, and things happen. And so I think it's important for us to take time to talk about this, because um, we are not insulated from racism and discrimination in the halls of academia, and I wanted to take the time to talk about what that could look like, and not have any delusions, to say that, oh man, I'm going to, to use it as sort of an escape route. I want to get out of corporate because I'm dealing with too many corporate Karens. So I'm going to go to school, and there you meet, the university Karen, or
Right.
somebody, the equivalent. So thank you
Yeah.
for taking the time to outline that. Now, you have your latest book called Hooded, A Black Girl's Guide to the PhD. Congratulations on that. So I want to talk to the women watching who might be in grad school right now. What are some of the key ways they can make the most of their experience while they're in school? Because in your book, you talk about how Black women can make this journey successfully.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for that. Yes, the book is right here. So I'm gonna give you a little zoomed in here.
And we're
But
also going to put it on the screen right here so you can see it. There you go.
I know one of the things, and just touching on your point before, other than the racism, as you said, moving from corporate to academia, throughout anything that you do is going to be unconscious bias, no matter what. We all have it. We all go through it. We all do it, right? So it's how do you deal with those situations? But as you go into graduate school to figure out how can I make the journey better, because I am going to deal with all those things as a Black woman, how can I make it better for myself? And for me, what really helped my experience was finding a network, finding a tribe. I call in my book, I talk about, this tribe of people that I found in my second year. My first year, I was really a loner. I would go to school, go to class, go back to my apartment, go to class, go back to my apartment, to the point where it was overwhelming because the work was so much and I was transitioning from physics to mechanical engineering. So I was doing a completely different topic. And I felt like I didn't have that support and I didn't know how to navigate. And eventually I found a tribe of people just through, when we see each other, like if you're in a strange place and you see another Black person and you don't see anybody else, like,
Yeah.
hey,
The
right?
nod.
Right. And that's exactly how it was for me and one of my colleagues. She became my automatic friend, and she pulled me into this group of people who became some of my biggest supporters throughout my time there. So I would say finding a tribe is important. Finding allies are also important because when I got to the school and even after, throughout my time, there was no Black professor in my department. So I had to find allies. I had to meet with people who I knew supported me and supported my vision and my goal, and that's really important. To find those people who can support and find people who can advocate for you as well. So an advocate and sponsor. So I talk about that a little bit. Finding a mentor, and through the network you can find a sponsor because a lot of the times we're going to be in a place where we aren't in the room and we need someone to advocate for us. And for me, I know my advisor, even though he wasn't a Black person, he was a person of color. He was Cuban descent, right? And he was one of my biggest advocates. And I had a couple of professors like that.
That's incredible. So let's talk specifically about the doctoral process because it's much different than earning a master's or an MBA. My best friend actually is in the finishing phase, the last phase of her PhD, her dissertation defense, and watching her incredible journey, and having a front row seat to all of that just makes me have so much more respect for her journey and for those who do dare to pursue and earn a PhD because there were certainly were some challenges throughout her time. So, how did you navigate your doctoral journey specifically while balancing the other parts of your life? Because life doesn't stop just because you're in school.
Girl, I had no life. There was, there was no life to be had. I was a full-time student, and my focus was getting to the finish line, and it was tough because you could be so engrossed in this doctoral process. And I remember I would just be in the lab for hours, sometimes 10 to 12 hours at a time, right? Not talking to my family. And you get in, sometimes you get in such a dark place because you're so overwhelmed. And because you're in a dark place, you don't want to talk to anybody, right? So it really is forcing yourself to find that balance and taking that time for self-care. And I think definitely in my later years, I finally was able to get a grip on it a little bit by carving out time to have um, quality time with my tribe, for example, right? My friends, and really lean on them to make sure that I had an overall experience. And I think that really helped because I had some great times, definitely, and all my great times was because of some of these people. So it's really important to be mindful and conscious of the balance piece because you can very easily get sucked into that, especially if you're going to school part time, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, and people who school part time and do a doctoral program part time and go to work full time, I commend them and I admire them because it's so much work. I only did a certification course for 2 years or something, and I was like, oh gosh, this is too much. I was so tired all the time afterwards. So it's really hard. It's really hard, but you have to be. I like to use the word intentional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're going to get right back into this incredible conversation. But first, I want to take a quick moment to share something. Now, if you're watching this or you're listening to this discussion right now, then I have a sneaky suspicion that you're really interested in becoming a thought leader in your industry. A thought leader is someone who is considered an expert among the experts and is the trusted go to in their industry. They also move and inspire and disrupt people with their innovative messages, ideas, and actions. Here's the truth: the vast vision that you have requires you to be regarded as more than just a subject matter expert and more than just a popular influencer. It requires you to be respected as a thought leader. And in times like these, when people all over the world, both online and offline, are searching for someone or something to trust to guide them toward their end goals, it's so necessary to position yourself in this way. Now, this show is all about diving deep into the minds of brilliant Black thought leaders to learn how they think and to learn what they think. But I don't just want to stop at helping you think like a thought leader. I want to help you communicate like one too. Why? Well, because after 15 years of being a communication strategist and as someone who has worked with some of the most well known brands, well respected organizations, and highly regarded thought leaders, I know that the amount of money, the clients, customers, and opportunities that you really want all depend on your ability to clearly communicate the value of your brand, the value of what you have to offer, and the value of your work. So, if you know that you were made for more, and you're ready to claim it, you first have to speak it so that more doors can open for you. And I want to help accelerate that process for you. That's why I created the Thought Leader Assessment. It's a no charge assessment designed to offer you three key things. Number one, it'll reveal the kind of thought leadership characteristics you most likely embody already. Number two, it'll match you with an iconic thought leader so you can have a real world example to look to. And finally, it'll offer you 9 thought provoking questions every emerging thought leader needs to ask and answer in order to increase your influence, scale your impact, and raise your revenue. Again, this thought leader assessment is completely free of charge to you. So, are you ready to discover what kind of thought leader you are? To take the free thought leader assessment, go ahead and text the word quiz to my number at 404 737 4957. Again, text the word quiz to my number at 404 737 4957. And yep, it's me. I'm going to be responding with a link so that you can go ahead and take the assessment, get your results immediately, and start positioning yourself and your brand for more incredible opportunities. All right, now back to the show. So now, Dr. Grayson, I'm sure there are plenty of people watching who are looking at the state of the world and how, it's impacting academic institutions. And they might be saying, I don't know if grad school is for me in this, with this uncertain future. And I don't want to incur any more student loan debt for a degree that may not render me as much opportunity as it once did. So, what do you say to those who are on the fence about uh, attending grad school? And how can they make the right decision for themselves during this uncertain and chaotic time?
Right. Well, grad school isn't for everybody, right? And I had to remind myself of my why so many times. And if I didn't have a why of why I wanted to go to graduate school, I don't know if I would have made it. So I would encourage people before you even think about pursuing a graduate degree, think about the why. Why is it important? Is it because, you're in a situation, for example, people in social work sometimes going to graduate school gives them more tools that they can get to help their clients, right? Or it gives them more of the experience that they want, the research that they need. So that's their why. Whereas somebody in STEM, for example, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, maybe they're like, well, I want to become a professor or I want to try a postdoc. So they decide to pursue graduate school. It really, really depends. And I would really say what is the why for you before you decide to pursue graduate school. And it is an investment. It's an investment in time, and depending on the type of graduate degree, an investment in money, right? Because MBAs and master's programs, they're very expensive, and not all the time scholarships are available or scholarships are really competitive. Like MBA programs, for example, while they offer funding, it's really competitive and you have to do a lot of legwork before you get that. When it comes to your PhD, depending on the type of PhD, right, there are a number of resources. Like if you're in STEM, for example, there are a bunch of fellowships that you can go to. If you are a woman, depending on the field you go into, there is the American Association of University Women, and they have a number of different fellowships depending on whether you're full time student, whether you are working and you have a specific topic that you're going to do your PhD in. So it really depends. But there are
So,
resources.
So, what should those who are looking to enroll in grad school and pursue their, another degree, what should they be expecting from the institutions that are providing their higher education, especially during this time? Because I'm not sure if you have been following the news reports, but there are quite a few, university students who are starting to question whether it is worth paying tens of thousands of dollars for a semester for online only access, right? Like part of the reason why a lot of the college tuitions have been so bloated and have caused the creation of so much student loan debt is because of the actual facilities, the physical campus. And so for those who don't have access to the physical campus or just don't believe it's safe for them to have access to the physical campus, what should they be requiring or expecting of their higher ed institutions that they enroll in right now?
So right now, a number of institutions, they are online, right? Some are in person and some have gone to online curriculum. And I think either option is fine, right? If you are uncomfortable going to the institution, which I totally understand because you're being exposed, or you feel like you're being exposed, then I would still pursue that online education. And also make sure you talk to the institution, talk to the financial aid, talk to the accountant, because if you're not there physically, then you shouldn't be paying room and board and things like that. And we have to, a lot of the money that's spent, it's tuition, right? And when we think of tuition, so we have tuition and we have room and board. If room and board is a big part, so you get that portion back. But tuition, it's basically the lessons that you're being taught, like you're being taught these lessons. So if you're still being taught and if you still getting the quality, even though I know some of us feel as if, well, I get a better quality when I'm in person. We don't know what life is going to be like a year from now. We don't know if we can ever go back to how it used to be. So we need to adjust and adapt to this being the new normal and making the most out of that situation, that online situation. And this shows us if our professors or the people in higher ed, how good of professors they are, right?
Yeah.
Because you have those professors who can really, really engage students no matter where they are. And you need to seek out those professors in your institution. And this is also a learning experience for professors who probably will use this as, well, this is how I can improve. So I would say this shouldn't be a hindrance to go to school because at the end of the day, in the industry, job recs, they still require what they required before COVID, right? And they're still going to require it after COVID. So making sure that you still work towards that goal is important.
So you've developed the Black Girl's Guide to Grad School. Can you talk about what that is and why it can serve as a resource for Black women pursuing their advanced degrees?
Yes, I can. So Black Girls Guide to Grad School, it's under an umbrella, Feminist Empowered LLC, which was I recently created that LLC. And that really is a company, an organization that is focused on advocating and encouraging Black women who pursue graduate degrees, right? And under Feminist Empowered LLC, we have Black Girls Guide to Graduate School, as well as, of course, the speaking engagements and the partnerships with universities to go on and do workshops with them, like imposter syndrome and navigating graduate school, networking, mentorship, so topics like that. Black Girls Guide to Graduate School was created when I graduated. It was created because of my journey, and that was the motivation for the book, of course. And I started writing a few blog pieces based on my experiences. And then one day somebody asked me to review their graduate entrance essay, so their personal statement. And I was like, oh, well, I don't really have that much experience, but I've been to graduate school, so I know what they're looking for. And I did it. And I really had such a fulfilling feeling, right, once I did it, that it just kind of took a life of its own. And since then, I've reviewed over 100, or probably by now 120 essays for women over the past 4 years.
Wow.
A couple men, yeah. And it's all free, and I just pull the essays in. People send them to me. Now they can go to my website and submit the essay. And I have a couple people who volunteered, which I love, and they review it for you. We work with you a couple times for you to feel really comfortable, like, yes, this is representative of me, and this is what I want to submit. And you submit your personal statement, but it's really meant to be a support system, right? It was never meant to, like, oh, well, this is a business and this is what we want. No, I want you to, as a Black woman, go to graduate school and pursue that advanced degree to get a seat at the table. And this is what I can do to help you, even though it's a small piece of what you need.
I really love that. And that just demonstrates another thought leader type characteristic, and that's generosity. That is so very generous of you. And so, if you're watching this right now, if you're a Black man or Black woman and you are pursuing, you're looking to apply to graduate school, visit www.malikagrayson.com. It'll be down below in the ticker. And if you need someone to review your personal statement, she said, y'all, it's free. And you better hop on it while it's still free, while she's still able to do it for free. This
I know,
is
free 99
free
on the
99.
free 99. Yeah, I've been doing it for, I've been doing it for almost 4 years now, and it's been great. But of course, as time goes on, as more people hear about it, sometimes I get like 15 essays, right, at a time.
Wow. Wow.
It's funny how it has grown now, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know how long we can keep on doing it. like this, you know. So I really want to try and help as many people as I can.
That's amazing. And so that is what this show is all about, is bringing these kind of resources to emerging leaders, change makers, and aspiring entrepreneurs. And if again you are looking to go to grad school and you need a critical set of eyes, somebody who has been there, done that. She has a doctorate, y'all. If you want her to review, and or her volunteers to review your grad school personal statement, and it can make or break whether, not only whether you get in, but whether you get funding. Okay,
Yep.
scholarships, grants, things like that. So don't forget to go to malikagrayson.com. The information will be down below in the ticker, so that you can learn more about how Dr. Grayson can help you get into grad school. So thank you so much, Dr. Grayson, for that. That is so incredible. So let's talk about your book. Let's talk about Hooded, A Black Girl's Guide to PhD. What do you hope readers get from your book?
Well, Hooded is really about my journey, right? And it's almost like my diary, I want to say, because I really lived through or relive some of the moments that I've been through, you know, in my graduate school journey. And what I want people to get out of it as they read it is that you aren't alone in your feelings. Someone else felt like that, and someone else is feeling like that. I talk about mental health a little bit, and how I was depressed and I felt as if, as a black woman, I couldn't go to the therapist because I would look like a weak person. And you know, as black people, we're supposed to be strong because that's how we were raised. And my grandmother had 11 children, and she never talked about mental illness, or she never talked about being sad. She always kept it strong because she was a matriarch. So
Mm-hmm.
as a black woman, I felt like, well, I should be strong too because all these people in my family have been strong. And I talk about being able to submit to needing to talk to somebody. And I felt it was important to be vulnerable about that because I want people to be comfortable opening up and owning their feelings, opening up and owning their frustration, but also opening up and owning their successes and their happiness and their joy. So it really is a journey through each year, 5 chapters, year 1 through year 5. And at the end of each chapter, I have a guide, like an end of chapter guide, where you can make little notes depending on the year, ask yourself a few self reflective questions, again, depending on the year.
Incredible. So, if you are a black woman who is on the journey to a PhD or even in grad school, and you're thinking about getting a PhD, I want you to pick up Dr. Malika Grayson's book. It's called Hooded, A Black Girl's Guide to the PhD. And it is available at malikagrayson.com. As a matter of fact, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to see if we can put this on the screen, so that folks can know where they can get it. All right.
Yeah,
So
so you can get it on my website. If you want a signed copy, you can get it on Amazon. It's on Amazon right now. You can get it on Barnes and Nobles. You can get it on Books a Million. I'm really excited. So it's everywhere now. But if you want a signed copy from me, then you need to go to the website.
all right, you guys heard it. So, Dr. Grayson, this show is called Think Like a Thought Leader. So, I would be remiss if I did not ask you what thought leaders have helped guide your journey.
Yeah. So when I think about that and I think about a thought leader, you know, that's somebody who's really an expert in a specialized field, right? A thought leader in their field. And I think back to LinkedIn. So there's this person I follow on LinkedIn. Her name is Bridget Hyacinth. And I think she actually has some Trini roots. You know, everybody is supposed to have a little Trini in them. But she has taught a lot about leadership on LinkedIn and she has published books on it. And I really aspire to be person that she reflects in some of her posts. Like she really puts some thought provoking posts on just to help you think and self-reflect on what it means to be a leader, right? And because when I think about a leader, I don't think about, okay, I'm leading an organization. I think about somebody who people respect. I think about somebody who people admire. I think about somebody who people can go to and feel as if I want to hear this person's opinion or I value that person's opinion. And that is exactly what sometimes her poster about or her book is, whether it be for an organization or just professional development, personal development. So to me, she's one of the thought leaders that I look to, and of course, I wouldn't call them thought leaders at my job, but they're subject matter experts. Um, just to think of a few people, because there are a few people when I think about branding or sponsorship, and they really have been experts for me when it comes to that branding piece and using your brand to help you build a network, and then using that network to help you find mentors and sponsors, and joining that all together. I think it's so amazing. So I look to, she's a mentor of mine, actually, look to her as a thought leader for that specific branding, networking field. So that's the name of you.
Now, I could sit here and have this conversation with you for hours, and I know we have to wrap up here. So, what's the one piece of advice or encouraging word you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Yeah. Well, this has been fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity, and I thank everyone for tuning in. But one of the things I always tell people, and I tell this to high schoolers as well, and I tell this to university students. I always tell them, never let someone's opinion of you dictate who you become. And what I mean by that is, we talked a little bit about, well, people may want you to become this person, a lawyer or someone, right? But if we try to fit into the shape or the space that people want us to be, then it's never going to be perfect. And we will try so hard to be that person that we'll end up being nobody, because you're not yourself and you're not really that person.
Right.
So let people's opinion of you dictate who you become. So that's one piece of advice I want to leave. Be true to yourself, right? Be a and be intentional about it.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Grayson, for gracing the show with your incredible insights and for coming to talk about your book, Hooded, A Black Girl's Guide to the
Yes.
PhD. So, of course, we want you to go to www.malikagrayson.com to learn more about the book and to pick it up. And it's available in all bookstores, Amazon, anywhere where books are sold. Thank you again, Dr. Grayson.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Now, if you enjoyed this conversation and it inspired you in some way, then please feel free to spread the word by sharing it with someone who you believe needs to see or hear it. And if you love today's show, you'll definitely want to sign up to be notified when I have other insightful conversations to help you build wealth related to your calling by texting me at 404 737 4957. That way, you'll never miss another discussion when it airs, and you'll also periodically receive communication tips to help you position your brand and business as a thought leader in your industry. And finally, in an effort to stay true to our vision and remain unbossed, and unapologetic, we've created the opportunity for those of you who enjoy this transformational content to support us monetarily through Patreon. So for as little as $5 a month, you can invest in a network dedicated to creating programming for the upliftment and enrichment of Black people through media and entrepreneurship. So to patronize us, please visit thinklikeathoughtleader.com and hit that green button that says, "Let's build this." Or if you're more comfortable doing a one-time contribution instead, you can go ahead and click that blue button, which allows you to give via PayPal. Your monthly or one-time investment will help build a groundbreaking multimedia company that will shift paradigms and empower a generation of leaders and entrepreneurs with thoughtful programming and high quality content. So, to learn more about how you can donate and how you can patronize us, please visit thinklikeathoughtleader.com And we thank you so much in advance for your support. That's all for us. Thanks for tuning in.